Jorge. I think Denise Cherneau outdid herself with this number. Hey, hi, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Star 6, Episode 5. But before we get started, I want to send a shout out to this week's Tipperdoo, Randall Leopold, who not only sent some love, but also said that he and his husband got my Wilma Pride mugs, and they're loving them. Well, prove it, Randall. Where are the pics? It's like the two of you don't want to be Redbubble models or something. Seriously. I'd also like to welcome to the family my latest Patreoners, Chris Jones, Sherry L, and Eleanor. Look for their names in the credits at the end of this video. And if you'd like to support my channel with the Tipperdoo or through Patreon, those links are down below. Okay. Jorge, drink me! Could be anything. There's no garnish. There's no love. It's a hell of a lot of gin, though. Okay, let's get to it. This episode started with the queens digesting recent events. A'keria was feeling how close she was to elimination and was not pleased, but on a brighter note, she wasn't giving up either. Ginger was still getting over Yara, telling them all to F off. And she wasn't the only one. All the queens felt she'd given up once she landed in the bottom. Of course, the queens still needed to see how the voting went, so they looked into that little black box and were not too surprised to see that the only vote for A'keria was obviously from Yara herself. Although Jan was clearly gagged. Apparently, she thought because Yara had a win that the other queens would vote for A'keria, but they didn't. I have to give it to Scarlett, who said Jan didn't have to get the group's permission to vote a certain way, which is true, but clearly Jan was now afraid that her choice would put a target on her back. Well, she's right. It did. At least one. And with that, the queen started to de-drag. Well, except for Jan, who raked herself over the coals for her overthinking yet another aspect of being on Drag Race All-Stars. Why won't she just relax? Seriously. The next day, the queens bid a fond, if not brief, adieu to Yara Sofia and then got down to the important things in life, namely fashion. And if they weren't going to give Trinity the title of Trade of the Season, they were at least going to name her most fashionable. But before anyone could dispute that honor, there was Ru with this week's Maxi Challenge. The queens would be producing their own talk show called Pink Table Talk. The queens divided themselves up into 3 teams of 3. Eureka, A'keria, and Trinity were team 1. Team 2 was Kylie, Raja, and Scarlett, which left Ginger, Jan, and Pandora on team 3. Right away, the queens got down to picking their topics. The choices were body, sex, and motherhood. A'keria, Eureka, and Trinity got sex because, as Kylie said, you gotta go with what you're good at, girl. Scarlett thought her team should do motherhood, but because Ginger was in the process of having a baby through a surrogate, she wanted that topic for her team too. Needless to say, the room was gagged to hear that about Ginger, but then they were also intrigued to hear that Scarlett had 2 moms. So it came down to rock, paper, scissors, and because Scarlett's paper covered Ginger's rock, Scarlett's team got motherhood. That left body for Ginger's team. Right away, Ginger asked to be her group's moderator, and her topic of discussion was going to be being plus-sized. Pandora was at the other end of that spectrum, having been skinny her whole life, but that certainly didn't make it an easier topic for her to talk about. See? Everybody has body issues. Jan was excited to make the whole thing about her and her ability to have a real conversation with someone about an important topic. Over on Team Motherhood, Scarlett was happy that she'd won their topic because, well, as she said, she has 2 moms and she loves them very much. Raja, on the other hand, falls into my category, not having a good relationship with her mother, while Kylie really didn't reveal any connection to the topic one way or the other, so she took on the role of being moderator. Good for Kylie. Team Sex was getting down to it, especially A'keria, who not only loves sex, but was excited to reveal some chapters in A'keria's life that people weren't aware of. Trinity was excited to talk about being HIV positive and what effect that has on people and sex, while Eureka, as the self-proclaimed sexy fat queen, was going to be her team's moderator. As the queens got ready, Scarlett brought up a concern about Kylie's critique about coming out of her shell because, as their moderator, she would be setting their team's tone. Of course, Kylie was worried by the lack of trust she was feeling and asked Scarlett if she'd rather be the moderator. Scarlett didn't. She just wanted to make sure Kylie gave it her all. Raja said nothing, which, I have to say, impressed the hell out of me. And then it was time to pull up a chair to the pink table. Team Sex was first, and Akira started them off by revealing that she used to live as a transgendered woman named Kiki. Oh no! I was gagged! So were her teammates. It was interesting to hear her talk about retransitioning to being a male and dealing with the work she had done to feminize her body's bottom half. To be honest, I was fascinated by this discussion. Trinity talked about being HIV positive and how she's owned her truth and uses her platform to educate the uneducated and helping those who are positive to acknowledge their status. Of course, sex and drag came up. I love that Trinity talked about her boy self, Josh, as Trinity's manager, and that if you want to get to her, you got to go through him. And the only way anyone was going to get to Miss Trinity was to put a ring on it. Here's the Trinity. Priorities. Just saying. Eureka brought up a good point about being a sexually active, plus-sized model. There's a difference between worshiping a body and fetishizing it. Lord knows I'd like to be worshipped once or twice, I'm just saying. Not by you. All the teams ended their pink table talk with looking into a furry pink box and guessing what the mystery item was. Team Sex had an oral exerciser, which used to be my drag queen name in high school. Team Motherhood was next, and Scarlett kicked it off by talking about having two moms that she loves very much. I also loved hearing that her moms found each other later in life and were planning on getting married. Certainly gave me hope. Just saying. Raja had a very different story about not being as close to her mom as she used to be. She got really emotional talking about their relationship as a work in progress and them living in a conservative state, as well as Raja's mom being a pastor. Even though Raja loves her mother, she shared that it hasn't been an easy thing to do. Lord knows, I can relate to that. Here's to Raja. Kylie took Raja's hand and shared that through the childhood trauma she went through, she learned not to let the hurt child make your grown-up decisions. Seriously, who else needed a Kleenex? Team Motherhood ended their pink table talk by revealing their pink furry box content. Of course, everyone thought that their object was a bum toy, but seeing as I'm single and love to eat, I think I was the only one who knew it was a citrus reamer. Well, they were half right anyway. Reamer. Last but not least was Team Body to the pink table with their talk. And my first question was, what was Jan wearing? Thank God there was a table to block her bottom half is all I'm saying. Seriously. Ginger, who seemed to be the most comfortable at the table, kicked their talk off with her experiences as a full-sized model. And that experience was that she wasn't always overweight. A bowel obstruction seemed to be the catalyst for her body changing almost overnight when she was young. The biggest downer about being overweight for Ginger has been the constant reminder she gets about it on social media. Because, well, people are so thoughtful. Jan could absolutely feel where Ginger was coming from because she struggled with her weight after her season on Drag Race when she was overeating during her first lockdown during COVID. Ginger got a word in edgewise by saying that no matter who tells you what, at the end of the day, when you're looking in that mirror, there's no one there to tell you how beautiful you are but you. Jan totally agreed because she had to tell herself that she was okay with her weight gain. This is who she is, and she loves her butt. Pandora got a chance to say that if she could tear down one beauty standard, it would be ageism. She's gone from Goldie Hawn to Oldie Hawn, so she knows of what she speaks. Same. I'm not there yet. Finally, it was time to look into Team Body's pink furry box, which had what I thought was a cigar clipper, but since it vibrated, it was obviously an eye stimulator. I don't know about the rest of you, but when I want my eye stimulated, I look at Jason Momoa. But now I'm busy. And then it was elimination day. All the queens were feeling fairly confident about their tabletop taping. Well, maybe not Raja. She was worried that airing her dirty laundry on TV and rehashing her past may compromise the future of a relationship with her mother. Akira assured her that letting out that hurt wasn't done to be disrespectful. It was meant to help them heal. Here's to Akira. Of course, Jan was still thinking about herself and how she voted last week, so she took this opportunity to ask the room if a person's track record was no longer a consideration. Most seemed to agree that it wasn't. Eureka asked if anyone was worried that someone would vote someone out as competition, and the room agreed that, well, it was no longer personal. It was just drag, which I felt was drag queen speak for do your best not to be in the bottom. Seriously. And then it was time for the runway. Rue looked yummy in yellow with her pink victory rolls. Shut up. I thought in honor of Rue that I'd throw on my victory rolls from the fabulous Denise Journeau. I love it. Of course, Michelle and Ross were there as well, and joining them at the judges' table was one of my favorite people, Aisha Tyler, looking lovely in her studded mask, which she took off in true Sasha Velour style. Let's hope Shea Coulee didn't see that. I mean, I don't want last season's winner to get triggered. Category is Clash of the Patterns. I have to admit that I didn't hear Rue correctly and thought she said Clash of the Pageants. So the first few queens, I kept thinking, what pageant are they clashing? I'm an idiot. All I have to say about Trinity's look is 10 Fingerdoos across the board. This look was stunning. It was so beautiful that I didn't care that there was only one pattern and that it didn't clash. Seriously. Eureka was another Fingerdoo for me, and not just because those patterns clash, because it was practically art. Go on. I'll admit that Akira's runway didn't clash. Hell, there wasn't even a pattern on it, but that won't stop me from giving her a Fingerdoo as well. Her ode to pattern drafting was right up my alley. Seriously. Not like that. It's too bad that Raja had to follow those first three looks, because as beautiful as her runway was, it seemed kind of understated following those others. Still, I gave it a Fingerdoo. Kylie's animal patterns clashed beautifully, but my only critique was that it seemed a little short. With those big sleeves, the abruptness of that hem kind of threw the whole thing off balance for me, but not enough to not give it a Fingerdoo, so it's to Kylie. Nice legs. Scarlett's runway was stunning, but the monochromatic patterns didn't clash at all for me. But the fact that she'd made a print with her grandparents' love letters to each other during the war put this look well into Fingerdoo territory for me. Seriously. The only thing that clashed about Jan's runway for me were her leg garters. Other than that, the whole outfit was made out of the same pattern. Hell, those shopping bags she was carrying had more patterns on them, I'm just saying. But between her stockings and those god-awful hearts on their wig, it clashed just enough for a Fingerdoo, but only just. Talk about clashing. The prints on Ginger's runway clashed so much it gave me a headache. Seriously, Fingerdoo for Ginger. Do you have an aspirin? Pandora's runway was almost too tasteful to clash, but still, it did. So I gave her a tasteful Fingerdoo. That's what her last boyfriend said. And then it was time for the judges' critiques. The winning team of this week's Maxi Challenge was Team Sex, with Trinity, Eureka, and Akira. But the top queen of the week was Ginger Minge. I have to admit, that surprised me. Y'all know I love me some Ginger Minge, but I really thought Eureka was going to take this one because of everyone's performance. I felt hers was the most natural. Just saying, here's to Eureka. All four queens were then dismissed to the Untucked lounge. Needless to say, Akira was thrilled because this meant she wasn't up for elimination. Again. Eureka, on the other hand, was getting a little frustrated at being safe. She was ready for a win, dagnabbit. Seriously. Once in the lounge with cocktails in hand, the queens congratulated Ginger, who was thrilled to feel like she was finally being seen by the judges, but she felt odd not having her teammates there with her. Of course, that spawned the conversation about who was safe and who was not. All the safe queens felt that Raja was safe. Scarlett, on the other hand, was too on for Eureka, so she thought she wasn't going to be safe. I didn't feel that. Trinity felt that Jen was out of place in Ginger's group, like a teenager talking to adults, and the rest of her team agreed. Then Eureka admitted that she was jealous that Ginger won, not because Ginger won, but because she didn't. But to be honest, I thought it was code for I was robbed! Just me. Regardless, that sparked a whole other conversation about the idea that there was only room for one big sassy white queen in the top. I think it was a good conversation to have. I've always agreed that a big girl should win because she's the best, not because she's big. So here's to Lawrence Chaney. Seriously, I hope she's doing okay. Not winning this challenge had Eureka also wishing she'd been more aggressive during her table talk by asking Trinity more questions about HIV, and Trinity was very pleased to share what she knew, which is why I'm saying to you all, if you have any questions about your own status or a loved one's, get out to your local clinic and ask questions. Don't be afraid. Seriously. Education is power. Ginger took a moment to praise Akira by saying that not only didn't she know about her history being transgendered, it opened up her own feelings about her own gender fluidity. She never felt like a boy growing up, and how learning about the non-binary community helped her find herself. All I can say is it was an emotional deep dive in the Untucked Lounge this week, I'll tell you what. Here's to the queens getting in touch with all their feels. Seriously. Back on the main stage, it was judgment time for the remaining queens. Raja was first, and all the judges loved not only her runway, but how real she got at the pink table. Here's to Raja. It was a good night for her. Kylie was next, and although everyone loved her runway, Michelle pointed out that they really didn't learn anything new from her as the moderator of her team's table. Scarlett was next, and once she told the judges about the letters between her grandparents, the judges were more impressed with her runway. As for her performance at the pink table, Ross felt that she kept bouncing between being real and being on. Rue agreed and even said it made her feel uncomfortable, which was a shock to me. I will agree that Scarlett was over-animated at times, but I wasn't uncomfortable watching her. If anything, Rue's comment made me uncomfortable. Seriously. Speaking of people who weren't comfortable, Jan was next. Michelle didn't feel like Jan's runway had enough clash or pattern for that matter, while Ross felt she was going at 110% 100% of the time, and then Jan took it to 120%, bless her. She got really emotional defending herself on that stage, and sadly, I don't think she did anything to prove Ross wrong. Last but not least was Pandora Box. Aisha Tyler appreciated Pandora talking about ageism and how she let her mask, as it were, slip during her conversation. But Ross was frustrated because he never got a sense of how Pandora felt during the conversation, and Michelle admitted to feeling like Pandora was holding back. Just quiet, I think, is all her problem is. And then Rue announced that Kylie, Scarlett, and Jan were in the bottom, and with that, they retired to the Untucked Lounge. Needless to say, the rest of the queens were gagged to know there was a three-way vote for the bottom queens. Scarlett admitted that she was miffed because she didn't get the worst critique. I thought Jan was going to jump out of her skin right then and there, screaming that RuPaul said Scarlett made her uncomfortable. But for the first time in her Drag Race career, Jan kept calm, cool, and collected. I know, who is she? During her one-on-one with Scarlett, Ginger asked her who she would pick to go home. Scarlett said Jan, because she got the harshest critiques. Well, they were harsh enough to make her cry at any rate. Back with the other queens, Jan was defending her energy levels, but clearly there wasn't one of those queens who didn't agree with the judges. Hell, Jan was wearing them out while they were just sitting on the sofa drinking cocktails, for goodness sake. Seriously. Kylie was next for a kiki with Ginger, and it was clear that she was safe, at least where Ginger was concerned, even though Ginger did agree that Kylie had one of the weaker performances. Jan was the last to chat with Ginger, and I could see that she felt safe where Ginger was concerned. The two of them had gotten close over the last 2 weeks, and I have to admit, I don't think she was wrong to think so. Of course, when Ginger told her that Scarlett thought she got the harshest critiques, Jan got upset at having that narrative pinned on her. Even though every queen all but said they agreed with her being too much, she still held fast to that not being the case. Well, at least she's consistent. After the queens all voted, it was back to the main stage where this week's lip sync assassin was revealed to be Bianca Del Rio. How is she a lip sync assassin? She only lip synced once on her season, and that was at the end. Well, she wasn't the assassin. For some reason, they dragged Bianca's carcass onto the show because, I don't know, maybe she needs the money. No one told me. But I'm still not sure why she was there. But I won't say it wasn't nice to see Miss Del Rio, and as confusing as that was, she did lighten the mood. Now, the real lip sync assassin was Mayhem Miller, looking stunning. I love this lip sync. I had high hopes for Ginger because she may not dance a house down, but she is a great lip syncer. I mean, I'd tip her, and she didn't disappoint. I also thought Lizzo's Phone was the perfect track for Ginger to perform to. Both queens did a great job. They were up, they were down, they knew the lyrics. To be honest, I was a little more impressed by Ginger because I really did expect Mayhem to sweep the floor with her. So, when Ru announced Ginger won, I wasn't surprised. What did surprise me was Ginger giving $2,500 to each of her teammates, Jan and Pandora, who Ginger felt helped make her win possible. Here's the Ginger. And then it was time for Ginger to reveal whose lipstick she had. Sadly, it was Scarlett's, and boy, was she disappointed. So was I, but I wasn't surprised. Ginger was closer to Kylie and Jan than Scarlett, and with that, Ru asked Scarlett to sashay away. Of course, as Scarlett was packing, Ru's video message popped up inviting her to the mysterious game within a game. So, it's not the last we'll see of her. Well, what do you think? Did the right queen go home? I won't lie. I wish Jan had sashayed away only because I'm getting a headache listening to her tell us how much she's changed and how real she's being at the top of her lungs, complete with arm choreography. How about you? Did Kylie dodge a bullet? Will she be able to make her presence better known next week, or will she be back in the bottom? And how about Ginger? Do you agree with her win? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're down there, shut your face, make sure you like this video if you did, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And once you're done watching the next episode of RuPaul's Drag Race 6, you come on back and you see me so you and I can compare notes. Until then, miss me! Mwah! Seriously, Jorge. I'm so glad that Ginger won a challenge, but I am not going to lie to you and say I was surprised she won this one. I really thought Eureka had it. I feel like with All Stars, there's a level of familiarity that carries over into this. I mean, even Jan. The thing about Jan for me is she's being exactly the same way she was in season 12, and I didn't enjoy her in season 12. Now she's being the exact same way, and I'm enjoying her even less, God bless her. I mean, she's not a bad queen, she's a great singer. I'll listen to her sing all day. And Pandora Box. Will someone wake the dead? Seriously. I'm just so shocked that Scarlett went home. I like her so much. You know, I did not like her at the beginning of season 11, but I grew to love her, and I liked her even more during this. Well, we'll see what this game within a game is all about. Better not be Pinochle is all I'm saying. Seriously.